Blood stasis is the #1 cause of disease according to Chinese medicine. If you're here because you'd like to improve upon your own health, then you're in luck, because in this video I'm going to share how blood stasis, or the inefficient supply of blood, oxygen and nutrient flow through the body, is one of the most common underlying causes of disease, from chronic pain, heart disease, fatigue, anxiety, insomnia and more. Secondly, in this video I'm going to share how it can actually prevent and even reverse the process of blood stasis and improve our health at the same time. So what is blood stasis, and how can blood stasis affect our physical and mental health and well-being? So the Chinese figured out a long time ago that every organ tissue, every muscle tissue, all of our joints through our body require a constant stream of blood, oxygen and nutrient flow in order to function properly. Any restriction or congestion of blood, oxygen and nutrient flow to any part of our body is one of the most common underlying causes of disease and dysfunction according to Chinese medicine, and they call it blood stasis. For example, if I were to tie a rubber band around the end of my finger, and if I left that rubber band tight enough for long enough to the point where I started to cut off blood flow into the end of that finger, it'd just be a matter of time before I started to develop problems in the end of that finger. Why? Because every organ tissue, every muscle tissue, all of our joints in our body require a constant stream, an adequate supply of blood, oxygen and nutrient, as well as the body's own healing resources, its hormones, its anti-inflammatories, the body's own pain relief such as our opioids and ENKEPHALINS. Our body requires this constant stream, this adequate supply of all these essential resources, and any restriction of these starts to develop problems in our body. So when it comes to blood stasis and the level of disease or dysfunction that it can create in the human body will depend on the level of restriction or congestion within the blood vessels. For example, if I was to cut off blood supply to the end of my finger by 100%, meaning that there's no blood, oxygen, nutrient getting through to the end of that finger, within just 3 minutes that finger will start to actually die. However, if I was to cut blood flow by 50%, that finger will no longer die. But what happens is it'll start to develop chronic symptoms, such as the function of the finger won't be as quite what it used to be. Perhaps there's pain and swelling and stiffness. See, even though the tissue isn't dying, it's not healthy either. It's like in between. And that's often the state of many people's health as we get older through the years. And basically Chinese medicine figured out that over time this blood stasis issue slowly develops as we get older, and that we should actually counteract this as soon as possible rather than waiting till it gets so bad that it creates really serious issues such as ischemic heart disease. So you might be thinking, how do we prevent blood stasis? How do we reverse blood stasis? And how can we use this information to improve our health? Well, we're in luck, because the Chinese have been asking this question for over 2,500 years, and they've got answers. So grab out a pen and paper, because in the next part of this video, I'm going to share how we can prevent blood stasis, how we can even reverse blood stasis, and how we can use this information to improve our health at the same time. Firstly, I'm going to share 3 lifestyle steps that we can all take to actually slow down and prevent blood stasis. Secondly, I'm going to share 2 specific methods Chinese medicine uses to actually reverse blood stasis and treat all sorts of health problems that are caused by blood stasis. So the first lifestyle step that we can take to prevent blood stasis is to ensure that we eat a whole food diet. This means adding food into our diet that's full of nutrient, that comes from nature, that's organic, and avoiding food that's processed, such as processed flours, processed sugars, processed chemicals. There's 2 reasons for this. Firstly, when we have food that comes from nature, often it contains many essential nutrients that our body needs to function properly and to heal properly. Secondly, when we have processed food, processed flour, processed sugar, processed chemicals, it actually speeds up the aging process and speeds up blood stasis. Now, how does it speed up blood stasis? Let me give you an example. Let's say we start eating a candy bar, a sugary processed candy bar. And when we start to digest this candy bar, it starts to break down into glucose in our blood. Now what glucose does in our blood is it actually makes our blood thicker. And as the blood is thicker, as it circulates through our blood vessels, it actually starts to scrape on the inside of our vessel wall, like a sandpapering effect. And what that does is it creates irritation and redness on the inside of the vessel wall. Now what our own body does is to try and heal itself is to use cholesterol to patch it up like a band-aid. But if we were to continue to eat like this cholesterol just continue to patch itself up. And if we do this over time, eventually the inside space, the inside diameter of the blood vessels gets smaller and smaller, that less blood, oxygen and nutrient flow gets through these blood vessels to the areas that we need them most, such as our brain and our organs and our heart. All of the vital areas that our body needs those resources gets restricted of blood, oxygen and nutrient. So it creates ill health and disease. What we have to really do is to start to incorporate food that's rich in whole foods, that is nutrient dense, that comes from nature, that's organic, and we need to avoid processed foods such as processed sugar, processed flour, processed chemicals to slow down and prevent blood stasis. The second lifestyle step that we can take to prevent blood stasis is moderate exercise. And there's many benefits to moderate exercise. The first one you might notice is your energy levels increase straight after you finish exercising. This is because there's more oxygen circulating through the body that can produce more energy and you feel more energized. Secondly, our body can detox faster after exercising. This is because as the blood is pumping through the liver much faster and stronger, basically the liver can take that blood and detox it faster than it could if you were just sitting on the couch or laying down. But I would caution against marathons and ultramarathons and these long distance events, which are promoted as healthy but are not healthy for our inner organs. People that do these might look healthy on the outside, but actually they starve our organs of blood, oxygen and nutrient when we do these ultra long distance events. Basically all that blood that needs to be out to our extremities for such a long period of time starts to starve our organs of all the essential nutrients, and we become quite unhealthy inside but look healthy on the outside. So I recommend moderate exercise, nothing too excessive, and obviously not doing any exercise is also a problem. The third lifestyle step that we can take is learning to resolve and dissolve distress. So before we dive into this, I just want to mention that there's two sides to stress. There's actually a side to stress that is health building and helps us grow and develop and become stronger. But then there's another side to stress that is health destroying, and this is what we call distress. So in regard to how distress can create blood stasis, a clear example of this is something called broken heart syndrome. So you might have heard stories that someone dies and then just a few days later their loved one, their husband or wife, dies of a broken heart. Basically what happens is when this person loses their loved one, they get so emotional and so stressed and they have so much grief that they release so much stress hormone into their blood that the blood vessels and the arteries around their heart shut off and tighten and constrict blood flow into the heart muscle. When this happens, that heart muscle becomes ischemic. Basically, it gets starved of blood, oxygen and nutrient to the point where it damages the heart. And sometimes it gets so much damage that actually causes the person to die as well. And this is a clear example of how distress can affect blood flow in the body. Now, even though it's not this severe for most people, it can create all sorts of problems, from poor sleep to digestive problems to chronic pain, all this stuff, because the stress has effect on blood flow. And we need to dissolve and resolve this stress to have free-flowing blood all through our body so it can be as healthy as possible. So we need to learn ways to actually dissolve and resolve this stress. Personally, I like to use Chinese medicine. I like to use acupuncture. Acupuncture is great to help release the body's own endorphins and enkephalins and its feel-good hormones. I like to use meditation. Personally, I use transcendental meditation, but anything that brings you to gratitude and brings you a sense of peace is perfect. There's also a method called the D-Martini method, which is a great process that you can use to resolve grief and resentment and anxiety and depression, all these sorts of emotional things that pop up in our life. But no matter what you use, we need to learn how to resolve and dissolve chronic distress to ensure that we have good blood flow and good health. So we just learned about 3 lifestyle steps that we can all take to prevent blood stasis. But what does Chinese medicine do to help reverse blood stasis? How do we take somebody with blood stasis and then bring them back to normal, optimal, healthy function again? Well, there's two main strategies in Chinese medicine, and the first one is called Chinese herbal medicine. Now, in Chinese herbal medicine, there's a class of medicines called blood movers, and as a group, they all move the blood. But there's different types of blood movers. For example, there's blood movers that push the blood, there's blood movers that thin the blood to help encourage circulation. There's also blood movers that are called vasodilators, so they expand the blood vessels so more blood can actually circulate through and move into those damaged areas. There's blood movers that are called cooling blood movers, so they actually cool inflammation or are more anti-inflammatory in nature, where they help cool down the inflammation in the blood vessel but then circulate blood at the same time. And then there's warming blood movers, so if there's an artery or vessel that's constricted and very tight or contracted, like even we mentioned in broken heart syndrome, there's blood movers that actually warm up the blood vessels and expand blood vessels, similar to the vasodilators, but they're more warming in nature. So they actually help open up and circulate blood through those damaged areas. So there's also blood movers that actually target different parts of the body. There's a group of blood movers for the head and neck. There's blood movers for the upper limb, the shoulders, the elbows, the hands. There's blood movers for the different organs, so the heart, liver, the kidneys. There's blood movers for the lower back, the hips, the knees, the ankles. There's literally blood movers for every different part of the body, all designed to help circulate blood, oxygen, and nutrient to any area of disease or dysfunction so the body can actually start to heal itself. So the second method that we can use in Chinese medicine to promote blood flow, to reverse blood stasis, is something called acupuncture. So there's various types of acupuncture, but the acupuncture I use in my clinic is something called distal needle acupuncture. And the way distal needle acupuncture works is we use areas of the body that are condensed with something called proprioceptive nerves. It's basically areas around the wrists, the ankles, the elbows and the knees, and the head and neck. So we can use any of these areas. We don't have to use them all, but we can use one or two of these areas at a time for each patient. But what happens is when we stimulate these areas of proprioceptive nerves, that nerve will send a signal up the spine, up to the midbrain. When it gets to the midbrain, the body actually releases its own opioids and enkephalins. So what acupuncture does, it actually helps the body stimulate its own pain relief, and it helps drop pain. So normally with pain, our body constricts, tightens, and protects itself. But when we actually use acupuncture, we stimulate the release of the body's own pain relief, so that allows the body to relax and to get out of that pain response. That allows the body to vasodilate and to widen the blood vessels and to relax the blood vessels around the site of pain or dysfunction, and that allows the body to heal itself. So acupuncture indirectly promotes blood flow by first stimulating the release of the body's own pain relief. This is how acupuncture works, and it's a very quick summary, but if you'd like me to go into more detail and to perhaps share the mechanisms behind it, then comment below and I'll be sure to create another video about it. To summarize, blood stasis is the most common underlying cause of disease and dysfunction according to Chinese medicine. Blood, oxygen, and nutrient flow through the body is vital for optimal health, for our longevity, and also for our body's ability to heal itself. Any restriction of blood, oxygen, and nutrient flow through the body is what's called blood stasis, and we can slow down and prevent blood stasis by having a whole food diet, by ensuring we get enough exercise, by learning how to resolve and dissolve chronic distress. We can even reverse blood stasis by using Chinese herbal medicine and acupuncture. So thanks for listening, guys. If you have a question related to this video, please leave a question in the comment section below and I'll actually personally answer that question for you. If you really like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you like the content of this video, please subscribe to my channel to receive more content just like this. Until next time, be grateful and take care.